Today we're in Psalm 30, and I would like to just read the whole psalm again. It's 12 verses. I think we made it up to about verse 4 at the end of last week. But David is singing and extolling God at the dedication of either his house or the house of the Lord, and he is thanking God for preserving him and for raising him up. Friday we talked about sickness, and boy, we've seen plenty of that in the last 2 years. So much sorrow, so much grief, so much heartache. I hate the devil. I hate COVID. I hate illness. And I'm praying for so many people in our church family, even right now today, that are battling illness. And I know some of you are watching and joining me right now. Well, let's read the psalm, a psalm and song at the dedication of the house of David. I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up, and hast not made my foes to rejoice over me. O Lord, my God, I cried unto thee, and thou hast healed me. O Lord, thou hast brought up my soul from the grave. Thou hast kept me alive. I should not go down to the pit. Sing unto the Lord, O ye his saints, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness. For his anger endureth but a moment. In his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. And in my prosperity, I said, I shall never be moved. Lord, by thy favor thou hast made my mountain to stand strong. Thou didst hide thy face, and I was troubled. I cried to thee, O Lord, and unto the Lord I made supplication. What profit is there in my blood when I shall go down to the pit? Shall the dust praise thee? Shall it declare thy truth? Hear, O Lord, and have mercy upon me. Lord, be thou my helper. Thou hast turned for me my mourning into dancing. Thou hast put off my sackcloth and girded me with gladness, to the end that my glory may sing praise to thee. And be not silent, O Lord my God, I will give thanks unto thee forever. What is the overarching message here? The overarching message is that David is giving God pure thanks. He explains that he's extolling God and lifting him up, having come through a breaking experience, having come through a near-death experience. David was near death in some situation or some form, and God healed him and raised him up and delivered him. And he is now seeing God's favor and God's goodness and God's provision through the lens of suffering and hardship. And until that breaking experience, David is referring in verses 6 and 7 to how he viewed his life before the breaking. And a bit of presumption, but I think we can all go here. We all tend to go here. In our prosperity, verse 6, we say, I shall never be moved. I've got things, all my ducks are in a row. Everything's working out in synchrony. Everything is coming together. Maybe you feel that way today. And a little bit of presumption there. David said, Lord, by thy favor thou hast made my mountain to stand strong. God, you favored me and made me so blessed. Your favor has strengthened me. And God, the sense here is not a humbled, broken sense of gratitude, dependent sense of gratitude. It's a deserving sense of God's favor. God, you favored me. You don't favor everybody like this. And that leads to a bit of kind of like a teacher's pet syndrome. Like, well, the teacher likes me better than everybody else. And David had this sense that his prosperity and his safety and his security was because somehow he was on God's good side. Somehow he had done something to deserve it, or to earn it, or to accomplish or achieve in ways that others hadn't. Well, then God allowed the near-death experience. He allowed the brokenness to bring David to a point of humility. And that's where he says in verse 3, verse 8, I cried to thee, O Lord, unto the Lord I made supplication. And he's asking God, as we talked about Friday, what profit is there in my blood when I go down to the pit? Shall the dust praise thee? Shall it declare thy truth? God, am I really any good to you on planet Earth if I'm buried, if I'm in a grave, if I'm in a casket? And so David in verse 10, like he does, the psalm is almost an echo of itself. The first paragraph, verses 1 through 5, are echoed again in verses 6 through 12 in many respects, which is what Hebrew poetry does. So he says he made supplication, and in his humility he cried out to God, and he said, Lord, verse 10, hear me, O Lord, and have mercy upon me. Lord, be thou my helper. So his brokenness led to renewed dependence. It led to a downsizing of himself and an upsizing of God. And he realized that God's goodness was not deserved. He had not earned it, but in fact, God was giving it mercifully and graciously. Lord, have mercy on me. Do you see how the perspective changes? His view of God's blessings is totally different now. His perspective of what's really happening. He doesn't deserve. No, but God is merciful regardless. God is gracious regardless. I'm going to go back up to verses 4 and 5. As a result of God hearing David's prayer and the breaking experience, breaking him and humbling him, he comes up out of that saying, sing unto the Lord, O ye saints of his, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness. Now, how can we give thanks this week for the remembrance of God's holiness? On one hand, God's holiness is daunting. It's intimidating to us, especially when Peter says, be ye holy, for I am holy. What a staggering command. It's just a tough one to even teach or preach because it seems so unattainable. And so sometimes we can see God's holiness as this daunting, imposing, radically flattening concept. It just flattens us. But remember that his love is a part of his holiness. His grace is a part of his holiness. So God in love, God's holiness is manifest in two big ways. The first is in that he executes justice with perfect purity. He is a perfect judge, which means I'm probably the object of his judgment, right? Which is why his holiness is daunting and in some ways terrifying to us. But the other manifestation of his holiness is that he is loving and gracious and long-suffering and gentle and kind and merciful, and that he cares about me. And so Jesus took the wrath. Jesus took the judgment and bore the penalty so that God's holiness now can come running to my aid in a rescue. He can in holiness fight for me, not against me. In holiness, he can redeem me and not destroy me. It's his holiness that raises me up in value. And Peter said in 2 Peter 2, we are called to glory and virtue. What does that mean? That God values us. To be called to glory means God, through redemption, has placed a high value and a high honor upon you. And it's not a kind of honor that would raise you up in pride because you haven't deserved it. You could never earn it. But it's also a kind of honor that would prevent you from collapsing in self-despair or self-cynicism or self-pity, because God has called you to glory. He values you, and he's set honor upon you. And that's why David says, his anger endureth but a moment, but in his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Now we'll pick it up here tomorrow. But my friend, we can give thanks for God's holiness, because when we look at the horizontal and circumstantial world and it's a mess, we can realize that even in our own lives, we may feel for a moment that we displease God or that we're on the wrong side of his holiness or his anger. But in reality, because of Jesus, we're standing in the light and in the view of his favor. We're the recipients of his mercy and his grace, which are also about his holiness flowing towards us. And no matter what we're facing, we can know Our weeping endures but for a moment, but joy comes in the morning, and morning is coming. And that is his gift to you. It's called hope. And so this week, give thanks to God for his holiness. Give thanks to God for the fact that, yes, he is a just, angry, wrathful, perfect, holy judge. But thank him also that that holiness is leaning towards you through Jesus in the form of mercy and grace and favor. And he has prepared an eternity of joyful mornings for you. Hey, happy Monday. Have a great week. We'll see you tomorrow.